Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. In the last class, we had discussed about Harappan civilization and Vedic culture. I hope you have revised it. You have revised the PYQs as well. Was there any issue that you encountered that you want to discuss? Was everything clear? Chalo. So we discussed about one particular inscription, Sahagora inscription. That was an option in the question that we had discussed. What is the importance of Sahagora inscription? No, the relief inscription is different. It is a rock inscription. Okay, you are talking about relief measures. Okay, so yes, that inscription talks about the relief measure taken on part of the state. When you say relief inscription, so there is one kind of inscription that is inscribed on a relief. So I thought that you were saying relief inscription. So there is one very important relief inscription of Ashok as well. We will talk about it today. Okay. So when we talk about Sahagora inscription, that is talking particularly about relief measures taken by state in situation of natural calamity. Okay, so that was one thing we discussed. I hope you remember other things as well. So today what we are going to do, today we will start our discussion with Mahajanpad and we will talk about Mauryan Empire as well. When we are talking about these two topics, how relevant they are from prelims perspective, that is one thing that we should be clear about. When we are talking about Mahajanpad, so in Mahajanpad we study about 16 Mahajanpadas, we study about their capitals, we study about a lot of rulers who came to rule Magad and eventually how Mauryan Empire was established. That is the story that we study when we talk about the topic Mahajanpad. Does UPSC ask about capital cities of Mahajanapadas? Which question, which year it has asked about it? Have you looked at past 10 years questions? So which year UPSC asked about the capital cities? So if you look at the questions, questions on capital cities are not asked generally. Okay, that is something that we need to be clear about. Then only we can make our preparation smart. So the kind of questions that are being asked, either they'll be unique facts. Okay, I'll tell you what kind of unique facts do we need to remember. Or questions which are being asked are related to literature, or they are relating the information of Mahajanapadas with respect to Buddhism or Jainism, because this is the very time when these two prominent religions are also coming into existence. Okay, so these kind of questions are being asked. If UPSC is giving the name of a particular, let's say, ruler, they want you to know about their cultural contributions. So there are rulers who have actually contributed a lot in terms of growth of literature also in Mahajanapada period. So what kind of literature is being produced, that is another thing that you should know. So when we are talking about this particular topic of Mahajanpad, we need to study it from a cultural perspective. That is one thing that I want you to know. There was one question where they had asked you to arrange the Mahajanapadas in a geographical manner. That was one tricky question. Even if you mug up each name, each state, there is still a possibility that we can make a mistake. Okay, so it's better that we don't waste our time into mugging up all these details. What is important, what is smart here is to prepare it from cultural perspective. Okay, because that is what UPSC is most interested in. So we are going to look at those things, and I'll show you PYQs also. Then you will be able to understand, okay, UPSC is actually talking about literature. UPSC is actually relating this age with questions on Buddha or Buddhism or Jainism. Now when we come to Mauryan Empire, what kind of questions are asked in prelims? Do you have any idea? Sites are being asked. What else? Architecture, literature, everything that you can possibly think of as sources to study Mauryan Empire, that has been asked. The primary focus is on literature and specifically on Ashokan inscriptions. So you will find multiple questions in last 10 years only which are solely based on Ashokan inscriptions. So we need to know Ashokan inscriptions in detail. Which are the unique ones? When we are talking about his rock edicts, which edict is important and why that edict is important? Which are the places where Ashokan edicts have been found? All these things we should be clear about. Okay, so from factual information to conceptual details, all these things should be clear when we are talking about Ashokan inscriptions. Apart from that, when we are talking about prelims examination, questions on terminologies have also been asked. So important administrative terminologies from Mauryan period. For example, Sannidhata or Samaharta. These kind of terms have been asked. Or Shreni. What do we mean by Shreni? Or inscriptions which are not Ashokan but are part of Mauryan times. Those inscriptions also become important. Okay, so this should be our understanding before studying the topic so that we can put our focus on relevant aspects. Is this clear? So let us start our discussion with Mahajanapadas. Now, when we talk about Mahajanapadas, what do you remember? First, tell me briefly so that I can also have an idea how much we have to work upon it. Huh. It is a period of second urbanization. If we talk about it in economic terms, it is a period of second urbanization. What is the period of first urbanization? Harappan civilization, Indus Valley civilization. Okay, so what is happening around this particular time when we are talking about 6th century BCE? Okay, so use of iron. For which purpose? For clearing the forests to convert those areas into agricultural tracts. Okay, for that purpose iron is being used extensively. What else is happening? You said surplus production. What will happen with surplus production? So there will be people who would not need to produce agricultural goods for consumption because there is already agricultural surplus. So they will be free, they can engage in craft production. With that will come trade and with that will come growth of cities. Okay, so when we are talking about the period of Mahajanapad, we need to keep a few things in mind. When we are talking about this particular time period, with economic respect, what we need to understand that this is a period when use of iron led to growth of agricultural tracts. We understand that when we are talking about Ganga Valley, it is a very fertile land. So surplus production is also going to be there. Okay, so agriculture, surplus, and this surplus led to craft production, which led to increase in trade, leading to growth of cities, and second, urbanization. So economically, this is something which is happening. What was happening politically at this point of time? Hmm? So standing army was there when we talk about Bimbisar. See, first clear your concepts. When we are talking about what is happening politically, so Janapadas are fighting with each other, making matrimonial alliances with each other, threatening each other, and expanding their area of influence. Gradually, they'll become bigger geographically and they'll be called Mahajanapadas. Now, there are 16 of them. They are also going to follow the very same process, fighting with each other, or they'll use the tactic of diplomacy by making matrimonial alliances, or they'll threaten the other Mahajanpad, and they'll also start gradually expanding. With that expansion, what is happening? Magad will become victorious, and Magad is going to give India its first empire. Okay, so that was a process which was happening. If we talk about it politically, 16 Mahajanapadas and a process of expanding their sphere of influence. That is something which is happening here. If we talk about it in social terms, what is happening socially, or when we are talking about the religious aspect or cultural aspect, we have understood the Vedic society. It was becoming more rigid. It was excluding certain people when it came to education, when it came to giving them political rights. So the society had gradually become rigid. People were not very happy about it, and they'll start supporting religions like Buddhism or Jainism eventually. Okay, so that is a part which we'll discuss when we'll come to origin and growth of Buddhism and Jainism. That is a separate topic where we are going to discuss those things. Is this much clear? Now, when we are talking about these 16 Mahajanapadas, which one are unique in some aspect or the other? Is it a monarchical setup or is it an oligarchical setup? So which ones are monarchies and which ones are not? Only Malla and Vajji. So if you remember these two, you don't need to mug up which ones are following the monarchical setup. So remember the name of Malla and Vajji. What do we mean by this particular term, republican system or oligarchy? People are going to select a particular group of, see, when we say republic, that means head of the state will be chosen. Who is choosing them? It can be chosen through an oligarchical system. It can be chosen through democratic system. Okay, both the possibilities can be there. Here what we see that there are a group of people. Okay, they are choosing the head of state. That is why republic, not democratic but republic. So these two are going to be republics, others are going to be monarchies. So this is one unique fact that you can remember. What else is unique? Do you know any Mahajanapada which is situated in Deccan? Which one is that? Asak or Ashmak. That is the only Mahajanapada situated in Deccan. So these kind of unique facts we need to remember. So Malla, Vajji, Asak or Ashmak. So it depends which pronunciation you are using, whether you are going with the Pali pronunciation or with Sanskrit pronunciation. Okay, in both the cases answer is going to be the same, Asak. There is another Mahajanapada at this point of time which is very important when it comes to education. Which one is that? Takshashila. Okay, So we talk about Gandhar and the capital is Takshashila. Okay, so this is again a unique fact that we should remember. So this is what we need to remember, because this is going to help us solve the questions which UPSC is asking. Okay, so Gandhar Mahajanapad was culturally very important when it comes to spreading education. Takshashila University. Okay, this you can remember. Do you know anything unique about Avanti? Apart from the capital, each one of them are having one capital. Avanti is a Mahajanpad where Buddha was invited, but Buddha could not go to Avanti. Okay, remember this fact. Avanti. So Buddha was invited to Avanti, but he could not go there. Is this clear? He was not feeling well at that point of time, and then he started moving eastwards. So he is going to Kosala, he is going to Kashi, he is going to Malla Mahajanapada and preaching there. Okay? कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि दुश्मनी था. Okay? Because he is a philosopher. He is not a ruler who is going to have a political rivalry. Okay? So he was invited to Avanti, but he could not go. That is one important fact that we need to remember. Is this clear? So remember these details, because when it comes to capitals, that is going to be in printed notes anyway. UPSC is not asking about capitals. When you look at the questions, you will realize the importance of these kind of unique facts. Is this clear? So remember this when we are talking about the Mahajanapadas. What is happening in the end? That Magad is emerging victorious. Okay, so they are going to fight with each other, and eventually Magad will emerge victorious. There are going to be wars which will be fought for political reasons. There was one war during the period of Mahajanapada which was fought for cultural reasons. Do you know which war was that? That is in Vedic culture. There was this war of relics. Have you heard of it? War of relics? What is it? Can you be a little louder? See, when Buddha died, where did Buddha die? Kushinara or Kushinagar. किसका कैपिटल है? Malla. Okay, so it is the capital of Malla rulers. They kept the relics of Buddha. Now Buddha was very much popular by then. So what happened, that there were other rulers who were interested in getting the relics of Buddha, because it was something which they wanted to venerate. It became of cultural importance. So then war of relics happened, led by the Magad ruler Ajat Shatru. And then Ajat Shatru and his team, they won this war, and then relics were divided. Okay, so this is a war which was culturally very important. Where was it fought? Kushinara. Okay, now let us move on. So these are some unique facts that you should remember. If you want, in the printed notes, each Mahajanapad and their capitals have been given. It's not important that you mug it up. Still, if you are insistent on that, you can do that. Okay, what you need to know again here about some of the important rulers and their cultural contributions. So when we are talking about the important Mahajanapada, it became Magad. Okay, what is happening in Magad which is so unique that it is leading to Magad emerging victorious, that we will discuss, but after talking about some important rulers. When we are talking about Magad, who is the first ruler that comes to mind? Bimbisar. What is important about Bimbisar that we should know? Okay, so war technique is something which is important. See, why I want you to remember things from cultural perspective, because UPSC is asking questions on culture. Okay, so you can remember it, but more than that, culturally there are a few things which become important. He is somebody who is going to make a lot of matrimonial relations. Okay, so with Kosala, with Likshavi, with Madra, he is going to make a lot of matrimonial relations. That is something which we should know. He was a contemporary of Gautam Buddha as well. So that is again another thing which we can remember. When we are talking about him, he is the first ruler to have a standing army. This is one unique fact that we can remember. The first ruler to have a standing army. Okay, so remember this. Now he is also somebody who is using innovative war techniques. Okay, that is another thing about him. When he is dying, see, he is the one using diplomatic relations. When we talk about Ajatashatru, what are the methods that he is using? His successor, Ajatashatru, killed his father and became the next ruler. What we should remember about him? He is using the tactic of war for expansion purpose. That is one thing that we can remember. Other things are culturally important. For example, when we are talking about Ajatashatru, he is the one who will hold the first Buddhist council. Okay, we'll talk about these councils at one place when we will discuss Buddhism. But since we are at Ajatashatru, it is important to mention this. So just after the death of Buddha, Ajatashatru is going to be the one who will patronize the first Buddhist council. You were asking something? Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Okay. So Ajatashatru is going to patronize the first Buddhist council. What is the purpose? When is it happening? We'll discuss it when we are going to discuss Buddhism. Remember this much for now. What else can we know about him? He is the one leading the war of relics. Again, another thing which is of cultural importance. Then the next ruler is going to come, Udayin, who was his successor. What is something that he has done? Why do we remember him for? Shift of capital. He is shifting the capital from Rajagir to Pataliputra, which was known as Jala Durga. Okay. Has UPSC asked questions on these things? No. They have not asked about these things, but what will you revise? You have to revise these facts to be prepared for the examination when it comes to this topic. Okay. So remember this. Now, who is the next ruler that we know of? Shishu Nag. Okay. In Shishu, when we are talking about Shishu Naga dynasty, there is one ruler, Kalashok. Kalashok's name we have to remember. Why do we have to remember the name of Kalashok? Because he is the one who will patronize the second Buddhist council. Okay. So in that context, the name of Kalashok becomes important. Is this clear? We talked about Udayin. And there is this person Udayan in the period of Mahajanpad only. Are they the same or are they different? So who is Udayan? That is Udayin. Who is Udayan? Do you know about Swapna Vasavdatta? Swapna Vasavdatta is a text that UPSC has already asked. See, Udayin is the one who is belonging to Magad. There was another Mahajanpad Vats. Udayan was the ruler of Vats. Why I am asking you to remember them separately because he is somebody who is going to give inspiration to a lot of writers in the coming time to create magnificent pieces of literature. So we don't know a lot about these details, whether they are historically true or not. They might be just a figment of imagination because the texts are being composed in later times, but they are based during the time of Mahajanapada and they are centering around this particular person, Udayan. For example, Bhas is a very renowned poet who composed Swapnavasav Datta. So, if you don't know his name, you should write it down. He is a very important name, Bhas Swapnavasav Datta, and UPSC has asked questions on Bhas. So, Swapnavasav Datta is a writing where, so see what happens with this character Udayan. He falls in love with a lady and then he keeps crossing the mountains, rivers, and he is taking all the pains and he is going meeting the girl, telling her that I am in love with you, and somehow she is also telling him कि तुमको तो सपने में देखा था. So this happens in Swapnavasav Datta. That is why Swapnavasav Datta ki Vasav Datta ka sapna aaya, dream. So she is also telling him that I have already dreamt about you and I am madly in love with you. They get married. They lived happily till the time he falls in love again. So this is something which keeps happening with this guy. There are a lot of literary pieces and in all of them, one thing is common. He is falling in love, taking all the pains, going, meeting the girl, marrying her, then the story ends. Then you will find another piece where he is doing the same thing about another woman. Okay. So, Bhas composed Swapnavasav Datta. That is one very prominent text centering around the character of Udayan, and Vasav Datta is the heroine. Okay. Then we come across a particular text from Satavahan period. Gunadhya is a person. I will make you write down about him when we will come to Satavahan. So Gunadhya is a person who is composing Vrihat Katha. In that, the same story is getting repeated with another woman. Then you must have heard about Harsh, the king Harsh, who composed Ratnavali. The very same thing is getting repeated there also. The male character is Udayan only. Why am I mentioning about him here? Because UPSC sometimes ask these kind of questions also. They'll give you the story and they'll ask you कि कौन से text में ये story मिलता है. Okay, so we should know some basic details about the stories as well. Is this clear? So when we are talking about these poets or rulers composing poetry, they are composing it at later times. They are taking inspiration from their history, from their historical characters. So these stories are going to be based at an earlier time. जैसे पीरियड ड्रामा आज होते हैं ना, उस तरीके का कुछ सेटअप हमको यहाँ ध्यान में रखना है. ओके. Udayan was a historical figure, a ruler from Vatsa Mahajanpad. In later times, what happened that some poet took inspiration from his character, composed a particular text. जैसे आज भंसाली जी करते हैं, ठीक है? तो इस तरीके से for them this was part of their history and they were taking inspiration from historical characters. We don't know whether he fell in love with so many women, whether he actually took that pain or not. That is something that is part of the literary piece. But those pieces are centered around a historical character. Okay? So you should know that this Udayan is different from the character or ruler Udayan. Is this clear? So it is important to clarify it कि आपको अगर इस तरह का कोई क्वेश्चन आता है किसी टेक्स्ट पे बेस्ड, सो यू आर नॉट कंफ्यूज्ड. नाउ लेट अस कम बैक हियर. यू शुड नो द नेम ऑफ कालाशोक. व्हाई? बिकॉज कालाशोक इज द वन हु इज पेट्रनाइजिंग द सेकेंड बुद्धिस्ट council. Again, we will study the details when we will discuss the Buddhist councils under the topic of Buddhism. Here remember that Kala Shuk is belonging to Magad, patronizing the second Buddhist council. Okay, so here this is also clear that rulers were patronizing Buddhism, at some places Jainism as well. Okay, now who is the next ruler? Mahapadam Nand. Okay, we should remember his name. Mahapadam Nand from Nanda dynasty. So when we are talking about Mahapadam Nand, in most of the sources, he is said to have a lowly origins, that he is not coming from a Kshatriya background, he is not coming from a very high background. That is one thing that we should know about him. Okay. Now what did he do? There is a particular person, Panini. Do you know who Panini was? What is the important work that Panini has composed? Ashtadhyayi. These things you should remember for sure, because UPSC keeps asking about these texts. Okay, so Ashtadhyayi is a text which Panini has composed. What is the key subject of Ashtadhyayi? It is a text on Sanskrit grammar. Is it also a lexicon? Dictionary. The fancy word is lexicon, you can say. Sometimes UPSC gives these kind of terms as well, so we should know that. See, when we are talking about texts belonging to this particular genre of Sanskrit grammar, they are often used as lexicons also. So they are going to give you rules related to Sanskrit grammar, and then they are also going to compile all the Sanskrit words which were popular at that time. So these texts will also function as a dictionary, as a lexicon. Okay, so if there is this line which has been given that Ashtadhyayi also functions as a lexicon, we don't have to be confused, क्योंकि हमारे जहन में क्या होगा भाई, it's a text on Sanskrit grammar, how can it be a dictionary? But it is also functioning as a lexicon. Why we are talking about Panini here? He was a very good friend of Mahapadam Nand, and Mahapadam Nand is somebody who is patronizing Panini. So UPSC asks these kind of questions, not only in mains but also in prelims. Which particular literary scholar is related to which ruler? Okay, so when we talk about Panini, he is related to Mahapadam Nand. There was this statement which UPSC had given. So they had given Pushyamitra Shunga patronized Panini. Okay, Panini is patronized by whom? Mahapadam Nand. तो पुष्यमित्र शुंग किसको कर रहा है? Patanjali. Have you heard of Patanjali? Patanjali is a person who composed Mahabhasya. Okay, so Mahabhasya there is this genre of tika in Sanskrit language or in other languages as well. So Mahabhasya is a tika of Panini's Ashtadhyayi. So Patanjali is being patronized by whom? Pushyamitra Shunga. Panini is being patronized by whom? Mahapadam Nand. उसमें उन्होंने इस नाम को ऐसे कर दिया था. Okay, they had interchanged the names. So we should be clear about the patronage being provided by a particular ruler. Okay, so here we should know Mahapadam Nanda patronized Panini. Panini composed Ashtadhyayi. Okay, next important thing that we need to remember, Kharvel is a ruler from Odisha, present day Odisha. Kharvel is inscribing a particular inscription named Hathi Gumfa inscription. And in that inscription, he is giving the early history of Kalinga. So Odisha was known as Kalinga earlier. So he is giving the early history of Kalinga. And in that inscription, he is saying that Mahapadam Nanda had conquered Kalinga as well. We all know that Ashok conquered Kalinga. But before Ashok, there is another Magadhan ruler who is going to Kalinga and who is conquering that region. Okay. Why am I giving these details? If there is a statement which is given that Mahapadam Nand conquered Kalinga, हम basic logic क्या लगाना चाहेंगे कि Ashok had conquered Kalinga. So how can the name of Mahapadam Nand pop up? And we'll make that a wrong statement. But that is a right statement. And it is coming from a very prominent inscription, Kharavel Sahathi Gumfa inscription. Okay, so that is a unique information that we should keep in mind. Is this much clear? So we need to know that Mahapadam Nanda is patronizing Panini. Mahapadam Nanda has been mentioned in a Kharavel Sahathi Gumfa inscription, where Kharavel is claiming that Mahapadam Nanda had also conquered Kalinga. Is this clear? Now his successor, Ghananand, उसके बारे में क्या याद रखना है? Only this fact that he was killed by Chandragupta Maurya and Mauryan Empire was established. Okay, so that is what we need to remember about him. So when you are elaborating about a text, okay, so let's say I wrote something, I taught you something, you are going out, you are meeting your friends and you are saying, ma'am said this, ma'am explained it in this way. So a way of explaining what is written here. Okay, is this clear? So now let us move on to the next topic. Now let's say there is this statement which has been given that Swapna Vasav Datta is a text which tells us about Mahajanpad period. Would it be a right statement or wrong? It is a right statement because it is a historical drama. So it will tell us about that period. The same is true about Gunadhya Vrihat Katha as well. The same is true about Harsha's Ratnavali as well. There is this particular text, Mudra Rakshas. Who composed Mudra Rakshas? No. We'll talk about it in a while. Then I'll give you the name also and I'll make you write down what is there. Okay. So let us come here. Vishakha Datta ke bare mein baat karenge. Then we'll talk about him. Let us come here and start our discussion on Mauryan Empire. I hope you understood those details which we need to remember from Mahajanpada period. You can remember a few other facts also. What were the reasons for the success of Magadhan Empire? What was the reason for the success of Magad? Let's just quickly revise that. कि अगर एक question आ गया and they gave you 4 or 5 options and they are asking you to eliminate the wrong ones, you can do that. If we talk about it geographically, what were the reasons? First, the strategic location of the capital. Okay, so strategic location of capital when we are talking about Rajagir surrounded by hills. When we are talking about Pataliputra, it is a Jaladurga surrounded by water from 3 sides. Okay, so that becomes important. Now let's come to resources in geography. Iron ores are present. When we are talking about Magad, what else is present? Iron ores, elephants. Elephants were important war animal at that point of time. So they have availability of elephants at their disposal. They don't have to spend resources to buy elephants. At the same time, they can sell elephants and they gain a lot of resources. Okay, that will be another reason. Then you were saying fertile land. Fertile land. You can connect this with economic reasons. Okay, so fertile land, more surplus production, more craft production, and trade is going to increase. The state will get the benefit of that, and state will be able to come up with a very strong army first, very strong administrative machinery as well. Because when we talk about state having a permanent standing army, you need to pay them even when you are not fighting a war. That is the idea of having a permanent standing army. So a state which is having a permanent standing army and a large army, the state is going to have a lot of taxes at their disposal. Tax is going to reach the royal treasury when there is increased production. Is this clear? So economic reasons that can be related to political reasons as well. That a lot, when we are talking about economic prosperity of Magad, it is going to lead to collection of more taxes and making the administrative machinery better, making the army large and strong. Okay, we are talking about Bimbisara having permanent standing army for the first time. Okay, so that is something that can be talked about here. Army, strong administrative machinery, as well as a series of capable and ambitious rulers. When we are talking about other Mahajanapadas, so we do hear some names. For example, we hear the name of Prasenjit, we hear the name of, we talked about Udayan. There are one or two rulers in each of the Mahajanapadas who were strong and capable as well. But after them, what will happen? The successors might be weak. When we are talking about Magad, Magad had a series of ambitious as well as capable rulers. So that is going to make Magad much more stronger than the other Mahajanapadas. We can also talk about social reasons here. When we are talking about Magad, it had a heterogeneous population. So people which are falling under the category of heterogeneous population, they'll have different skills to offer. Any society which is having heterogeneous population where different people are offering different skills, that society will thrive more. Okay, so that can be another reason. Is this clear? So all these things are coming together in the case of Magad. In other Mahajanapadas, one thing might be present, second might be absent. Okay, so they might have a few aspects present at their disposal, but they did not have a combination of all these factors. Is this clear? So this will be the reason for the success of Magad. Before 2013, there was one question where they had asked it. What were the reasons for the success of Magad? They had given 4 options. One of them was wrong. Okay, so if you look at questions from, let's say, 2001, 2012, 2007, you will find those questions to be very easy in comparison to the ones that are being asked now. But then cutoff might be higher. If questions are easier, cutoff is going to go high. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to know the basic facts also, and we need to know the advanced facts also, especially when it comes to ancient medieval art and culture. Okay, so from here we have discussed the basic things also, we have discussed the advanced factors also, which are unique, which you need to remember. I hope this topic is clear. So let us start the next topic, Mauryan Empire. When we'll complete that, then we'll do the PYQs. Yes? Which text? Patanjali is being composed during Shungan period. Okay, because Yes, we will find manuscripts. That is how we know about them. If you go to Sanskrit department, people have worked a lot upon Ashtadhyayi. So what was happening, people were copying these texts. Some of them will be copied, that will be available to us. ठीक है? कि ancient India में there were multiple texts which were being composed. Now let's say if I am teaching you, you found the lecture relevant. You made a note of it. Okay. If you are not finding something relevant, you will not write it down. So that will be lost for the coming generation. But what you have copied will be transmitted to the next generation. If they find it relevant, they will copy it again. So some of the texts are going to survive over time. Some of them will be lost to us. So that is why we say कि Ajivika was a sect which was present. But we don't find any texts because people might not find that appealing enough to copy it down. Okay, so there are other texts like Buddhist sources, like Jain sources. They refer about Ajivika. That is how we know about Ajivikas. That there was one sect called Ajivika which was present during that time. But we don't know a lot of details about them. Why? Paucity of sources. People have not copied it down. So some of the texts are still available to us. If you go to Pune, there is R.G. Bhandarkar Institute. You will find a lot of ancient manuscripts being preserved there. In other areas also, manuscripts are preserved, but that is the one which became very, very relevant. Is this clear? Should we move on? Chale. Because there is this text called Mudra Rakshas. That is why I asked you. Do you know about it? In that text, it is mentioned. Okay. And they are talking about the whole plotting. कि कैसे उसका जो मिनिस्टर है उसको बोल रहे हैं कि आके मौर्यन एम्पायर को ज्वाइन कर लो. बिकॉज कौटिल्य इज सजेस्टिंग चंद्रगुप्त मौर्य कि मिनिस्टर तो रेलेवेंट है भाई. इतना बड़ा अगर वो expansion process करके if they are able to survive, then the minister is somebody who has wits. So you should ask him to join Mauryan Empire. So it is about that whole plotting. Okay. So now let's talk about Mauryan Empire. That text was written during Gupta period. So when we will talk about Gupta period, I will talk about it. ओके तो हिस्ट्री में भी आप इन लोगों में ये देखेंगे ना, पीपल हु आर बिलोंगिंग टू गुप्त पीरियड, दे आर टेकिंग इंस्पिरेशन फ्रॉम देयर हिस्ट्री. सो दे आर राइटिंग अबाउट महाजनपद पीरियड, दे आर राइटिंग अबाउट मौर्यन पीरियड, दे आर राइटिंग टेक्स्ट ऑन पोस्ट मौर्यन पीरियड. सो दे आर ऑल्सो राइटिंग हिस्टोरिकल ड्रामास. इज दिस क्लियर? Now let's talk about Mauryan Empire. It is a very, very important topic from our prelims perspective. When we are talking about Mauryan Empire, let us first understand the sources to study the Mauryan Empire. What are the sources to study Mauryan Empire? If you have to talk about the time period, 3, 22 or 21, in different books, different dates are given, 187 or 85 BCE. That is the time period. When we are talking about sources, first kind of source will be literary. So what literary sources are present? Indica, Arthashastra. Their first category will be of religious sources. Okay, so there are going to be religious sources. Brahmanical sources are going to talk about Mauryan Empire. Buddhist texts will also talk about Mauryan Empire. Jain sources will also talk about Mauryan Empire. So there is a category of religious texts which are going to tell us about Mauryan Empire. Then the second category in literary texts will come, non-religious sources. In that, the most relevant book will be Arthashastra. So when we are talking about Arthashastra, it is said that it was composed by a person called Chanakya or Vishnugupta or Kautilya. All these three names are belonging to the same individual. Okay, so Kautilya is supposed to have composed Arthashastra. Why Arthashastra is important? Because it is a very important political treatise from ancient India. Does that mean that it only talks about politics? It talks about a variety of subjects. It talks about politics, it talks about warfare, it talks about administration, economic aspects, pastoralism, mining, safety of king. It talks about moral and ethical values which should be followed by people as well as the ruler. So it talks about a variety of subjects. Okay, it has been used to understand the administrative and political setup mostly. That is why we hear the name of Arthashastra in that context. Does Arthashastra talk about Mauryan Empire or any of the Mauryan rulers? Yes or no? No. It does. These are the tricky questions that can be asked. Arthashastra does not mention any of the Mauryan kings. Arthashastra does not talk about Mauryan Empire. It is a text which uses the term Vijigishu. What do we mean by Vijigishu? The king to be. Terminologies are being asked in prelims, you should know about the terminologies. Vijigishu, that means the king to be. So the first important fact that you need to remember about Arthashastra, it does not mention any of the Mauryan kings, it does not talk about Mauryan Empire. It uses the term Vijigishu and it is advising the Vijigishu how to rule, how to administer particular areas, what kind of economic aspects should be tackled by the state. Okay, what do we mean by Vijigishu? The king to be. Why do we use then Arthashastra to study Mauryan Empire? Because a part of it was composed during Mauryan period. That is why we use the text Arthashastra to study Mauryan administration as well. Is this clear? So remember this. We are going to refer to Arthashastra when we will discuss economy or when we will discuss society. Now coming to the third category. One will be religious, second will be non-religious, third will be foreign accounts. So there you told Indica. Indica is another important source to understand the history of Mauryan Empire. When we are talking about Indica, who composed it? Megasthenes. Does it, do we find it in totality or in pieces? We find it in pieces. So there are Greco-Roman writers who have given excerpts from Indica. So that is how Indica has survived. It has not survived in totality. Is this clear? Most of the things that we are finding from Indica, they are either a misunderstanding or a wrong information of Mauryan Empire. Nonetheless, it remains relevant for us. Why does it remain relevant for us? To understand how foreigners were looking at India. How people who are not belonging to a particular land, what kind of perceptions do they have about India? That becomes important when you will write mains answers. Okay. In prelims, you just need to know what Megasthenes has gotten wrong. Is this clear? So this is going to be our category of literary sources. In prelims, questions have been asked on Arthashastra. Yes, please raise your hand because when you interrupt when I am speaking, one loses the flow. Okay, so let me complete what I am speaking, then I will ask you to raise your query. Yes. Yes. Yes, that we'll discuss when we'll come to Chandragupta Maurya, na? Right now we are talking about the sources. Okay? Is this much clear? Now, if we talk about the other category, if we talk about the category of archaeological sources, what kind of archaeological sources do we have? What kind of remains do we have? Inscriptions we can talk about in epigraphic sources because that forms a separate category and a lot of questions have been asked on that. Do we find palace remains from Mauryan period? Where? Kumrahar. So Kumrahar is a site that we should remember. Okay, so the site of Kumrahar, that becomes important. Why? Because we are finding palace remains. Where is it located? Near present day Patna. Okay, so Kumrahar is one site. What else do we find? Do we find terracottas? Yes. From where? Bulandi Bagh as well as Chandraketu Gad. Chandraketu Gad is a site which UPSC has already asked. So from Chandraketu Gad you find terracottas from Mauryan to Gupta period. When we are talking about the site of Bulandi Bagh, it is specifically relevant for Mauryan period. So these two sites we should know why they are important in the context of terracottas belonging to Mauryan period. Is this clear? Do we find any sculpture from Mauryan period? Which sculptures do we find? Yakshi. Where do we find it from? Didarganj. So Didarganj is another important site. So we find Didarganj Yakshi. There is this male torso found from Lohanipur. Again, Bihar. So we are finding a male torso from Lohanipur as well. So if UPSC is giving the names of these sites, you should know why they are important, which period do they belong to. Is this clear? So when we are talking about archaeological sources, we should remember Kumrahar, Chandraketu Gad, Bulandi Bagh, Didarganj and Lohanipur. Is this clear? Now let us move forward. When we are talking about epigraphic sources, what do we find? Inscriptions. Whose inscriptions do we find? Ashokan. So we find Ashokan inscriptions. What are the categories in which these inscriptions can be divided? So, rock edicts. Then we can talk about pillar edicts. We can talk about cave inscriptions as well. Okay, these can be the types of Ashokan inscriptions. When we are talking about rock edicts, there are going to be long ones, there are going to be short ones. The same is going to be present in the case of pillar inscriptions, long pillar inscriptions and short pillar inscriptions. Is this clear? So remember this. The other important thing, we'll discuss the content. What is written in these rock edicts or in these pillar edicts when we'll discuss about Ashok. Here understand the nature of the sources. Okay. What is the language and what is the script? Are all the Ashokan inscriptions in Brahmi script? Prakrit is a language. See, when we are writing English, English is the language, Roman is the script. In Hindi, when we write Hindi, Hindi is the language, Devanagari is the script. Okay? तो बोलते हैं जो, what we speak is a language. When we have to write a language, we need a script. Okay? So there is a difference between the script and the language. And we should know about the script as well as the language. So when we are talking about Ashokan inscriptions, they are found in two scripts. One is Brahmi, majorly they are found in Brahmi scripts, but some of the scripts, some of the inscriptions are also inscribed in Kharoshthi script, specifically in northwestern frontier provinces. So present day, let's say Pakistan, Afghanistan, when we find inscriptions in those areas, they are in Kharoshthi script. Okay. When we are talking about Brahmi script, which language will be associated with it? Prakrit. So when we are saying Brahmi script, language will be Prakrit. When we are saying Kharoshthi script, language will be Greek and Aramaic. Here, Sanskrit is a language which is related with religious texts. Okay, when we are going to talk about post-Mauryan period, then Sanskrit will also become the language of the court. There is this very interesting book by Sheldon Pollock, Language of Gods in the World of Men. So in that he is also talking about this transition, that Sanskrit was a Devamani, language of gods, how it is also coming into political realm. Here when we are talking about rulers, they are not using Sanskrit language in court. What is happening? Prakrit is a language that Ashok is primarily using. At times, in certain areas, he is also using Greek and Aramaic language. Is this clear? So both the languages are going to be found when we are talking about Ashokan inscription. If there is a statement that Ashokan inscriptions are only written in Brahmi script and Prakrit language, that will be a wrong statement. Only should not be there. Most of the Ashokan scripts are written in Brahmi script and Prakrit language, right statement. Some of them, right statement. But if it is given only in Prakrit and Brahmi, that will be a wrong statement. Is this clear? So these kind of questions have been asked in UPSC. What is the script? What is the language? We should know about it. Yes. Yes. Kharoshthi, abhi to bola. हाँ, it is written in Kharoshthi script. Okay. And when we are talking about Prakrit, it is written in Brahmi script. Okay. यहाँ पर जब हम बात कर रहे हैं. Is this clear? So remember this script and language. Now we'll discuss about the details in a while. There are some of the areas which you should know. Again, I would suggest you to go by the map. When you look at your NCERTs, you will get a map as well. So prominent sites of Ashokan inscriptions that we should know. And in which area are they located? That is also something that we should know. For example, Kanaganahalli is a very important site. Where is it located? We should know. Do you know? Karnataka. It has already been asked twice. Okay, so you should know where Kalsi is located. You should know where Sarnath or Sanchi or Girinar. All these sites we should know where they are located. Eragudi is another site which UPSC has already asked. So the smartest way to go about it is by looking at the map and revising it. Because if we are doing it without looking at the map, we'll have to mug up the states. If we are looking at the map specifically dedicated to Ashokan inscriptions, we'll remember the site as well and we'll remember the state as well. Okay, so please go through the map thoroughly when we are talking about sites related to Ashokan inscriptions. Okay, so that is one thing that you have to do. Now, let us come to the architectural part. When we are talking about pillars, there are some prominent Ashokan pillars. Okay, which pillars should we remember for sure? Where the crouching animal is unique. For example, in Sankisa, we find the elephant capital. Ashokan inscription के बारे में बात करते हैं, तो ऐसे करते हैं. There is a shaft, then bell capital, then abacus, then there is this crouching animal. So in different areas, on the crouching animal is going to be different. So majority you will find that lion is present. But in certain areas, we also find bull capital. We find elephant capital. So we should know about those sites. Which one is the site where we find the elephant capital? Sankisa. Okay, I just told you Sankisa. That is one site that we need to remember. Where do we find the bull from? Rampurva. Okay, so Rampurva bull capital. That is one again pillar which we should No, there are other sites also, but where there you prominently you find the lion capital. Okay, so Sanchi, Sarnath, Vaisali, in all these places you find the lion capital. Okay, so remember these sites as well. Sites of Ashokan inscriptions, sites of Ashokan pillars. Okay, that becomes important from UPSC prelims perspective. Is this clear? So that is going to be there. In architecture, you will find stupas as well. We will study stupas separately when we will study Buddhism. So in Buddhist architecture, we will talk about stupa, we will talk about chaitya, we will talk about vihar. So that we are going to study comprehensively. Here remember that Ashok also erected a lot of stupas. Buddhist sources tell us that he erected around 84,000 stupas. Okay. Now we don't find the remains of 84,000 stupas. When we are talking about ancient Indian texts, you will find that they use two figure of speeches very prominently. One is simile, जहाँ पर आप comparison कर रहे हैं, where you are comparing one object to the other. The second is hyperbole, where you are exaggerating things. Okay, so what the text might be saying is that Ashok erected a lot of stupas. The number might not be as high as the source is talking about. Okay, so Ashok is somebody who has worked a lot to spread Buddhism, and he has also contributed in this particular context by erecting a lot of stupas. So they become one source for our understanding of Mauryan Empire as well. Is this clear? Do we find numismatic sources from this period? We do find numismatic sources, and we call them punch-marked coins. Why punch-marked? Because there were sheets of copper and there were various symbols. They were being punched like this. And then those sheets were cut down and they were used as coins. That is why punched marked coins. Is this clear? So remember, we find punch marked coins bearing various symbols from Mauryan Empire. Now, if this much is clear, then we can start talking about the rulers. Is this much clear? Huh? Religious sources, there are Brahmanical sources you will find mentioned in Puranas, you will find Buddhist sources. So in Divyavadan, in Mahavansh, in Deepavansh, you will find mention of them. That is something that we will study separately. When we will see, in Buddhism you need to know the literature. What are the literary pieces? So when we will study Buddhism, I will give you the names. What are the important texts that you need to remember? Okay. Is there a particular cave that we need to remember? कुमरा हार में तो पैलेस रिमेन्स है. बराबर में कौन सी केव है? लोमस ऋषि केव. These figures are present in NCERT as well. NCERT वाले तस्वीरों को कम से कम देख के remember those sites at least. Okay. So Lomas Rishi cave is also present there. That will also fall under the category of architectural sources. Is this much clear? Will you be able to remember the sites that we discussed? And the sources? Do this thing at home as a homework. Look at the map properly. Map of prominent Ashokan inscriptions. Map of prominent Ashokan sites when it comes to erection of pillars. Do these two things at home today. Okay. Now let's start talking about the rulers. Again, from this particular area, you don't find questions in last 10 years. They don't ask about Chandragupta Maurya or Bindusar. What they have asked about Ashokan inscriptions. Okay. So we are going to revise it, but prominent focus should be on Ashok and his inscriptions. So when we are talking about Chandragupta Maurya, why is he important? Because he is the one who is the founder of Mauryan Empire. Okay, he is the one who is killing the last ruler of Nanda dynasty and he is establishing Mauryan Empire. When we are talking about his relation with different rulers, there is one name that becomes important, that is of Seleucus Nicator. So Alexander had conquered the northern western parts and Nicator was one of the officials that he had left in charge of that area. So Seleucus Nicator and Chandragupta Maurya, they came to a treaty. They signed a treaty. What happened there? That Nicator sent an ambassador to his court, who is Megasthenes. Okay, and Chandragupta Maurya married Helena. Okay. Now some sources will say that she is the daughter, some of them will say that she is the sister. What we know, that she is a woman belonging to the family of Seleucus Nicator. Okay. The name is also not very specific. Helena, the one who is coming from Helen, Greece. That is Helena. If you look at the names of women, you will find it in this way only. Most of the women whom you will find the reference of, they have either been named on the basis of the kul that they belong to, family that they belong to, or the place that they belong to. Kekai coming from Kekai, Panchali coming from Panchal. Okay, so this is how names have been given. Their identity has been derived like that. Now let's come here. Chandragupta Maurya is marrying Helena. He is giving the gift of elephants to Seleucus Nicator, and that is how a treaty is being signed between them. Okay, so that is one thing that we can remember. UPSC has not asked about it, but we should know that this is one important treaty which had taken place. Apart from this, what becomes culturally important for us, that Chandragupta Maurya converted to Jainism under the influence of Jain monk Bhadra Bahu, and he performed Sanlekhana. What is the meaning of Sanlekhana? Willingly. Okay, willingly a person is choosing to starve unto death, and that is considered a very important ritual when it comes to Jainism. So it has been considered a very pious ritual in Jainism, where a person is willingly fasting unto death. Okay, so that is one thing that we need to remember about Chandragupta. There is one site which becomes important for us from prelims perspective. Shravanabela Gola. Why that site is important? It is in Karnataka, but why that site is important? See, when we are talking about the practice of Sanlekhana, a lot of people were going to Shravanabela Gola and they performed Sanlekhana there. So gradually it became ritualistically important for Jain people. So Chandragupta Maurya is going to Shravanabela Gola with Bhadrabahu there. Bhadrabahu came back, but he is going to perform Sanlekhana there. Is this clear? So remember the site of Shravanabela Gola, why it is important? For Jain pilgrim purpose. Okay. In Shravanabela Gola, we find a lot of Nishiddhi stones as well. So what is Nishiddhi stone? People who have performed Sanlekhana, there will be an inscription commemorating their ritualistic act. That will be known as Nishiddhi stone. Is that clear? So remember this when we are talking about Chandragupta Maurya. Megasthenes is coming to his court and he is composing Indica. What he has written we will discuss when we will revise society. Is this much clear? Now coming to Bindusar, what is important about Bindusar from our examination perspective? Again, culturally, what is important that we need to remember? He is an expansionist. He is expanding the area of Mauryan Empire till Mysore. There is a rebellion which is taking place in Ujjain, in Takshashila, and he is sending Ashok to curb the rebellion. That is the political information that we need to know. When we are talking about him from cultural perspective, he is somebody who is the follower of Ajivika sect. Okay, what is the philosophy of Ajivikas? I will cover it when we will discuss philosophy. All those things we are going to discuss together under the bracket of Indian philosophy. Okay, so he is the follower of Ajivika sect. That is one important cultural detail that we can remember. He was also known as Amitra Ghat, slayer of foe. Amitra, जो कि मित्र ना हो आपका, the one who is an enemy, and foe, Ghat, the जिसको मारा जाए. घात माने मारना, to kill. So he is the one who was a slayer of foe. So he was also known as Amitra Ghat. Amitra Ghat is a term that you should remember. It means slayer of foe or enemies. Is this clear? Now let's come to the important personality from Mauryan Empire also, and from the examination perspective as well, Ashok. So when we are talking about Ashok, the personality of Ashok is very important. So Ashok is the one who is the successor of Bindusar. Okay. Now, when we talk about him, majority of our information comes from his inscriptions only, because he is somebody who inscribed a lot of inscriptions on rocks as well as pillars. Okay. So he is somebody who is a direct voice from the past. So we can rely on the information that he himself is giving us. Second source of information about Ashok can be Buddhist sources. So Buddhist sources are also mentioning in detail about Ashok. Why are they talking about Ashok in a lot of detail? Because Ashok patronized Buddhism at very large scale. Okay. So in Buddhist texts, you will see this trope also, that they will keep saying that Ashok is somebody who is very cruel, and they'll mention a lot of details about his cruel acts. Then they'll say that he converted to Buddhism and he became a non-violent person. Again, we know historically that Ashok was a cruel person, but what is the extent of that cruelty? That can be questioned, because any particular religion which is bordering around a particular philosophy, they are going to emphasize upon its importance. Okay, so when we are talking about literary sources, we should also be aware of the some exaggeration that might be present there. Nonetheless, Buddhist sources also make up of important sources when we have to study about Ashok. Okay, now let us talk about Ashok as a personality. He is somebody who is said to have killed a lot of his brothers. Some texts say कि 99 भाइयों को मार के राजा बना है, that he has killed 99 of his brothers. So again it seems very convenient कि उसके 100 बेटे थे, उसके 400 बेटे थे. So this is a number which is a round figure. That is why these kind of numbers have been used in a lot of texts. So whether 99 brothers existed or not, that we don't know, but he definitely killed some of his brothers to become the next ruler. Okay, so he is becoming the next ruler. Now here we should also be aware of this particular idea. Dr. Upinder Singh is a very good scholar as well as a historian जिनकी किताबें optional वाले पढ़ते भी हैं. So she has written a very good book, Political Violence in Ancient India. So in that book she is talking about all these things. When we talk about ancient India, we often assume that it was a non-violent past. But it was not non-violent. When we talk about non-violence, the idea of non-violence will be relevant only in a violent context. If violence is not present in a society, why would we emphasize upon the importance of non-violence? Okay, so we see political violence happening here. Ajatashatru killing his father, Udayin killing his father, Chandragupta Maurya killing Ghananand. Everybody is killing one or the other person. Someone is being killed, someone is being poisoned. Here Ashok is also committing political violence. Is this clear? So killing a lot of his brothers, becoming the ruler. As a prince also, he had committed a lot of violence when he was sent to suppress particular rebellions. Okay, that is the political history. He is somebody who is also going to go till the Tarai of Nepal. So he is also doing some expansion, but the major area that he had to conquer was Kalinga, because a lot of expansion has already taken place till the time of Bindusar. Okay, so Ashok is the one who is going to conquer Kalinga. Is this clear? When he conquered Kalinga, he himself is saying that there is huge violence that has taken place, and I have made a huge number of people prisoner of war. When I saw that violence, my heart changed and I became non-violent. Now here also historians keep debating what must be the exact reason for his change of heart, because Kalinga was probably the last important area to be won. Kahan jata? Central Asia. So when we are talking about the change of heart, it was at a very convenient time. So that is one argument that has been given. Some people say that he might have lost a dear one, that is why his heart changed, that war can be so devastating. So that is also one argument that has been given. What we know for sure, that he had a change of heart. The reasons might be any of these that historians are saying. Historically we know that he had a change of heart after Kalinga war, and that is something that he himself is telling us in his 13th rock edict. Is this clear? So remember this much. Now when we are talking about Ashok, he is somebody who has given a lot of information about his deeds, about his ideas in his inscriptions. When we are talking about his prominent inscriptions, they can be divided into rock edicts and in pillar edicts. There are cave inscriptions as well that I told you. Okay, but majorly when we are talking about his ideas specifically, these ideas have been inscribed in rock edicts and on pillar edicts. Is this clear? When we are talking about rock edicts, they are in a set of 14 inscriptions. When we are talking, so these are long ones. Okay. When we are talking about his pillar edicts, they are in a set of 7. Okay. So 14 and 7, they are in a set, and wherever they are going to be inscribed, they are going to be in a set. So that means he has thoughtfully compiled his ideas into set of 14 rock edicts and a set of 7 pillar edicts. Now if he has to say something else, he is going to go with short edicts. So there will be another category of rock and pillar edicts. So after inscribing his ideas, if he thought, no, I need to say something else, he is going to get it inscribed on a pillar or on a rock. Okay, so they are going to be different edicts than this. Is this clear? So long pillar edicts, long rock edicts, they are going to be of primary importance to us, but there are certain short rock edicts as well as pillar edicts that are Ashokan inscriptions. Is this clear? When we talk about the language and script, what is going to be the language and script? Brahmi script and Prakrit language. Okay. In the area of northwestern frontier provinces, what will be the situation? Kharoshthi script, Greek and Aramaic language. Okay. That is something that you should remember for sure. यहाँ गलती नहीं होनी चाहिए. ठीक है? So that is going to be the language and the script of the inscriptions. Is this much clear? So let us take a break here, because after this we are going to have a long discussion on the inscriptions. So questions on inscriptions have been asked a lot. So I don't want to break it. That is why let's take a break now, then we can have the discussion in continuity. What's the time? We'll meet after 15 minutes. Okay. Okay, so we were talking about Ashokan inscriptions. Let us continue our discussion. When we are talking about them, they are rock edicts and pillar edicts. Okay. The ones that we have discussed are major rock edicts and major pillar edicts. So here we understood the language and script. Now, when we are coming to the minor ones, here the story will remain the same, but in the area of present day Afghanistan, we find a few inscriptions, very few in number, where the script is going to be Greek and Aramaic as well. So the language will also be the same and the script will also be the same. Okay, that is happening where? When we are talking about minor rock edicts. Is this clear? So that is another thing that you should remember. In totality, 4 script. When we are talking about major rock edicts, 2 of them are used. We have also understood the area. Okay. Now let us see what is happening. So scripts, the number is going to be 4. Okay. That is one thing that you need to remember. Language, we have talked about it. Prakrit is going to be the language. Greek and Aramaic is going to be the language. Now, let us discuss further what are the important unique details that we should keep in mind. When we are talking about the rock edicts, they are in a set of 14. Okay. Which ones? Major. Okay, so major rock edicts are in a set of 14. So which one are the unique ones? Because when we are talking about Ashok inscribing rock or pillar edicts, he is mostly talking about ethical and moral ideas. What are those moral ideas? Which are the ones which he is repeating again and again? Where do we find some unique information? That is something that we need to figure out. Okay. So when we are talking about Ashok, one thing which is common is that he'll keep emphasizing upon the importance of non-violence. He'll keep emphasizing upon the idea of maintaining harmony in the household, maintaining harmony in the society. So when he is talking about maintaining harmony in the society, he is saying that one should respect their elders, one should respect their teachers, one should respect people belonging to different religious orders. All these things he is emphasizing upon again and again. Okay, so these things are going to become majority of the content of his ideas. Okay, apart from that, he is also giving some unique things in some of the inscriptions, not in all the inscriptions. So where things are not changing, we'll say idea of Dhamma. What do we mean by idea of Dhamma? Moralities, ethics that he is talking about. When he is talking about morality and ethics, what is he talking about? He is talking about practicing non-violence. He is talking about respecting elders, respecting teachers, respecting people belonging to different religious sects. Okay, that is a very major chunk of his ideas. So that will be the idea of Dhamma. When we are saying that there are something unique in some of the inscription, that is the one that we need to mug up, or if you can revise it and remember it by understanding, that you have to do. Okay, so now when we talk about the first rock edict, what is there? Do any of you remember it? Hmm? So he is prohibiting animal sacrifice. What is the term that he is using in that context? He is saying that I am prohibiting certain samaj. Certain samaj. Okay, so samaj is understood as some kind of festival. So there might be some festivals, and on those days animal sacrifices were being done at a large scale. So he is saying that I am prohibiting certain samajas, by extension a prohibition on animal sacrifice. So he is starting this particular rock edict by saying that I have turned vegetarian. So he is talking about the importance of being vegetarian in this particular inscription. What else does he say? He says that in royal kitchen earlier thousands of animals were being slaughtered for consumption of meat. Now only 3 animals are being slaughtered. So he himself is admitting that he has turned vegetarian, but there are certain people in the family, particularly maybe rebellious prince or princesses, who are not listening to him. So he is saying that 3 animals are still sacrificed, and he is saying peacock and deer. So, yes, 2 peacock and 1 deer. So we also know that meat of these birds and animals were being consumed at that point of time. Okay, so importance of turning vegetarian. At the same time, he is talking about slaughtering certain animals and birds for food consumption. That is also part of first rock edict. Is this clear? So remember this. Then he is saying that I want people, I am advising people to turn vegetarian, but it is up to them. So he is not forcing people to follow Dhamma. He is advising people to follow Dhamma. That is another important thing that we need to remember, that Ashok, by the virtue of being a ruler, he is not imposing his ideas on others. He is talking about these ideas as advisory. Okay, so remember this. Is this clear? चलें, तो इसको याद रखेंगे. Non vegetarianism, consumption of meat for food consumption purposes. So slaughter of deer and peacock. At the same time, he is advising people to turn vegetarian. Prohibition on certain samaj. That is something unique in first rock edict. See, when UPSC asks question, if the idea of Dhamma, morality, is present in all the inscriptions, what will they ask? They'll ask you unique things, na? They might give you, let's say, 4 rock edicts here, and they might give the content here, and they'll ask you to match it. Okay, so if there is anything unique, then it will be put here. That is why I am asking you to remember the unique ones. Is this clear? So rock edict 1, these are the unique relevant details. Is this clear? Chale. Before going to rock edict 2, when we were discussing about other scripts, you were absent. We were talking about the other scripts as well. Till then, we had discussed the major rock edict. There we find 2 prominent scripts. Okay. When we are talking about minor edicts, then we find 2 other. That is what we discussed, Greek and Aramaic. That too very few in number and in minor, not in major. Okay. Chalo. Revise this one from the video if you don't know about the first rock edict. Chalo. Now come to second major rock edict. What is the relevant and unique information which is present here? In second rock edict, humans. Okay, so he is talking about opening up of hospitals, not only for humans, but also for animals. Okay, so when he is talking about the idea of compassion, it is not limited to human beings. He is extending his idea of compassion to animal world as well. So this is a relevant and unique information present in Rock Edict 2, opening up of hospitals both for humans as well as animals. Okay, what else does he tell us about in this particular inscription? He says that I have planted a lot of trees on the roads. Okay, towards the end of the second Rock Edict, he is saying that I advise the Kerala Putra as well as Chera Putra to do the same in their territory. Why am I mentioning it? There might be a statement which tells you that Ashok mentions his contemporary rulers. Does he mention them? Yes. He is not giving their names. He is addressing them by territory. When it comes to the rulers of Central Asia and Egypt, there he is also giving the names. Okay, so that happens in 13th Rock Edict. When we are talking about the second Rock Edict, he is referring to the rulers of deep south, present day Tamil Nadu and Kerala to be precise. We know that Sangam age was going on there, and in Sangam age from 300 BCE to 300 CE, we study about Pandyas, Cheras, Cholas. So he is probably referring to them. Okay, we are saying probably referring to them because he has written Kerala Putra and Chera Putra. Is this clear? So this is a unique and relevant information which you should remember from the second Rock Edict. Now another unique and relevant information comes in the fifth one. What is it? Does anyone remember? Appointment of Dhamma Mahamattas. Who were the Dhamma Mahamattas? Yes? Not Buddhism, the idea of Dhamma. Okay, we should be clear about the terminology, the idea of Dhamma. When we are looking at these inscriptions, Ashok is not mentioning Buddhism. Ashok is using the term Dhamma. So those ideas might be influenced from Buddhism, but he is not using the term Buddhism. So Dhamma Mahamattas are a category of officials who were appointed to propagate the idea of Dhamma. Okay, why was it happening? When he has already inscribed everything, why is he appointing officials to propagate the ideas? The issue of education. Was everyone literate? Can everyone read it? So here orality comes into picture. Oral propagation of his ideas. So that is why probably he is appointing the Dhamma Mahamattas so that they can go to different parts of his empire and they can propagate his Dhamma. Okay, so that is one unique information that you can remember from the fifth Rock Edict. Is this clear? Now another important and unique one is 13. And he is talking about a lot of things here. This is the longest major Rock Edict. So here, how does he start this particular Rock Edict? He starts this with giving us information about Kalinga War. Okay, so he is starting with discussing the detail of Kalinga war. What is he saying? He is saying that it was a very bloody battle that I have fought, and almost 1 lakh people were killed, and around 1.5 lakh people were made prisoner of war. So he is not only talking about Kalinga war being a bloody war, but he is also giving us a tentative data. That might be an exaggeration when we are talking about the exact number. Even if it is an exaggeration, we do know the intent behind it. That a lot of people were killed, a lot of people were taken as prisoner of war. And here he is saying that I am repenting that I fought this war. Okay, so not only is he giving the details of war, but he is also repenting upon what he did. So this is something very unique. The time that we are talking about is the time of monarchies, and rulers were not held accountable for what they did. Still, he had the courage to say that he is sorry. That is a very big statement coming from a ruler who is ruling such a large empire. Okay, so that is why probably Ashok remains very relevant. That might be one of the reasons. And here he knows that people in the coming generations are also going to read it. Still, he is not hiding what he did. He is giving a clear-cut information about a bloody war for which he was accountable. Okay, so this is something that he is giving. Why I emphasized upon it? Because in essay, what happens that ideas of morality, ethics, on these subjects also essays are asked. You are asked to write a particular essay. So you can use these historical examples there as well. Okay, now coming back to it, Kalinga War, the data of Kalinga War, repentance of Ashok. This is something which he is talking about here. After that, he again goes back to the repetition. He talks about the idea of Dhamma, that people should respect their elders, they should respect their teachers, they should respect the Shraman. These are the terms that UPSC has asked repeatedly. Shraman, Pari, Vrajak. These terms are used in the context of denoting the wanderers, ascetics. Okay, so Parivrajak or Shramana. So he is saying that people should respect the Shramanas, people should respect the Parivrajak, people belonging to different sects who are wanderers. Okay, so this is something that he says. After that, I don't know, or we don't know in general what was going on in his mind, but he might have thought it this way कि भाई कुछ ज़्यादा ही lenient हो रहे हैं. So what he does, he threatens the Atavikas. Who are Atavikas? Forest dwellers, forest tribes. So he says that do not create troubles. I am still the king. I can punish you. Okay, so since he is repenting and he is saying that I am very sorry about what he did, perhaps this came to his mind that Atavikas can create some trouble. So he is reminding them that do not be lenient, do not create trouble. What becomes important for us? Atavika as a term. Okay, that means forest dwellers, and Ashok is threatening the Atavikas in his 13th rock edict. So that is again a unique information that we should know. After that, what he does, again he comes back to his idea of non-violence, and he says that people should, so he says that I have done it, the coming rulers should also do this. What has he done? He says that I have abandoned the Bheri Ghosh. When people are going to fight a war, drums are beaten. So he says that I have abandoned the Bheri Ghosh, beating of drums before war. And he says that I have replaced the sound of Bheri Ghosha with the Dhamma Ghosha. This is something which is, again, we are talking about the 13th Rock Edict only. Okay? All these things are present there. So he says that I have replaced the sound of Bheri Ghosha with the Dhamma Ghosha, part of 13th Rock Edict. He says that I have done it, other rulers should also do it. So he is saying that I have abandoned the idea of political conquest. What I am adapting, he is not abandoning the idea of conquest. He is saying that I will do cultural conquest. So he uses the term Vijaya, but in the context of Dhamma Vijaya. He says that I'll now do Dhamma Vijaya, not the political conquest. Is this clear? So in this particular inscription, we also see Ashoka's ideas of political philosophy. This is a part of political philosophy that he is propagating. Okay, so he is saying that I am abandoning political conquest and I am adapting cultural conquest, that is Dhamma Vijaya. Is this clear? So remember this, again, this is coming from 13th Rock Edict. After that, he is giving an advice to the rulers also that they should also do the same. So he is advising not only his future generations of rulers, he is also advising this to contemporary rulers of Central Asia and of Egypt. So he is mentioning the names of Central Asian rulers and Egyptian ruler, and he is saying that I am advising the same idea to them also, that they should also do Dhamma Vijaya. That means Ashok is very familiar with what is going on in different regions surrounding his empire's boundaries. He is talking about rulers of Deep South also. He is mentioning the rulers of Central Asia and Egypt also. So it was a world which was probably politically connected. Okay, this is one idea that we can get from here. Is this clear? After this, what does he say in this inscription? He gives us the logic of inscribing these ideas on stone. So he says that I am inscribing these ideas on stone so that coming generations can also know the importance of these ideas and they can also follow the path of Dhamma. So he himself is telling us why he chose to inscribe his ideas on stone. Is this clear? So remember this much when we are talking about the 13th Rock Edict. Majority of the ideas, unique ideas, are present in this particular inscriptions. We talk about the three other ones, first, second and fifth. Remember those as well. Is this clear? Now when we come to the pillar edicts, they are major pillar edicts, they are 7 in number. Major pillar edicts. They are a set of 7 inscriptions. In this, the 5th pillar inscription is a very unique one. Why am I saying that? And this is the toughest one. If you have to read epigraphy, in our college we used to dread this particular inscription because our professor, Dr. Upinder Singh, she used to ask us to learn Brahmi and to transcribe it in Devanagari or Roman. And Ashokan inscriptions form a majority of our epigraphy syllabus, and this was the toughest one. Why is this the toughest one? Because it gives us a list of names of birds and animals which should never be killed. Now there are many birds and animals which we don't know about now. They are probably extinct. So now these are some of the names which we have either not heard or we know them by different names. Okay, so writing them becomes a task. You don't have to do that. What you have to do, you just have to remember that the fifth pillar inscription gives us a list of names of birds and animals which should never be killed, and it's a very long inscription. So when we are talking about the rock edicts, the 13th rock edict, major rock edict, is the longest one. When we are talking about the major pillar edicts, the 5th one is the longest one and the most unique one. Is this clear? So remember this. If you look at the questions, they are centering around rock edicts only. If you look at the last 10 years PYQs, you will find questions on rock edicts. Nonetheless, you should also know about the important pillar edict. Is this clear? Chalo. Now, there are some other things which you should know. When we are talking about Ashok inscribing these inscriptions, does he take his name? No. In these inscriptions, he doesn't take his name. When we are talking about the major rock and pillar edict, okay, what is he using as an epithet is Devanam Piya Piyadasi. Devanam Piya, one who is the beloved of God. Piyadasi, one who is pleasant to look at. So when we are looking at the epithets that Ashok is using, they are very humble in nature. What else is he doing? Does he address the people as their king? When we are talking about these inscriptions, where we find the ideas of Dhamma, he doesn't address them as their king as such. He says that I am like your father. And in those very inscriptions, he says that you should respect your parents. So he is not directly saying it, indirectly he is saying that only. So the fellow must have been very smart. Okay. So what is he doing? He is taking very humble titles, but in these humble titles as well, we see the idea of legitimacy. That Ashok is taking legitimacy for himself. He is not asking a priest to do it. Be it of any religion, he is not asking the priestly classes to give him legitimacy. He is saying that I am beloved of God. Who can question God? So by using even very humble titles, he is taking legitimacy for himself. Is this clear? In this context, remember a particular inscription from Kanaganahalli. Okay. A particular inscription from Kanaganahalli in present-day Karnataka, where there is a relief sculpture. What is a relief sculpture? If we are looking at a piece of stone, see, when we talk about sculptures, there are two types of sculptures prominently. One is relief sculpture, second is freestanding sculpture. Okay, so if let's say this is a wall and this is a wall. Now here you carved something like this on the very wall, but this is the picture, if you have carved this particular sculpture, it is attached to the wall. This will be a relief sculpture. If you have carved something which is not taking the base of a wall, it is freestanding like this. This will be a freestanding sculpture. Is this clear? So this is a basic difference that you should know. In prelims, questions on relief sculptures have been asked thrice in the last 10 years. Okay, so you should know these differences also. When we are talking about the site of Kanaganahalli, there is a relief sculpture which has been found. And why that relief sculpture is important? Because Ashok is standing there with his queens. Okay, now there is this, how do we know that he is Ashok? There is this inscription on which it is written Ranyo Ashok. Okay, so a relief inscription, a relief sculpture. On that relief sculpture, there is a particular inscription mentioning Ranyo Ashok. Is this clear? Apart from this, there are other inscriptions also. There is this one inscription in from Maski, from Nettur. On these inscriptions also, the name of Ashok has been mentioned, but not in the inscriptions where we find the idea of Dhamma. Okay, that is something that you should be clear about. Is this much clear? So remember these details about Ashokan inscriptions. Just go through the map once at home. Where are the major rock edicts, pillar edicts located? That is one thing that you have to remember, because in examination those questions are being asked. They'll give you certain names here and they'll give you the states here, and they'll ask you whether it is matched correctly or not. So sites and states. We'll do some practice questions tomorrow on this. So do this at home. In the next class, we are going to do the practice questions. Is this clear? So remember this much when we are talking about Ashok. Now, when we are looking at what Ashok has done in religious aspect, because the name of Ashok has been related with spreading Buddhism in various parts of the subcontinent. Okay, so what is he doing in that particular context? He is erecting a lot of stupas, one thing. So in architecture, we know his contribution, that he is erecting a lot of stupas, and Buddhist texts give us a number of 84,000. Okay, he is somebody who is visiting the important places related to the life of Buddha or Shakya Muni, the term that he uses in one of his inscriptions. Shakya Muni. UPSC asked a question on this very name this year only. So they had given 3 names: Nayaputta, Shakya Muni and Tathagat. And what they had written, which of the epithets are used for Buddha. Okay, so when we are reading the inscriptions, if we are mindful of the epithets that are being used, if we are mindful of the terms that are being used, we will be in a better position to answer a lot of questions. Okay, so he is visiting a lot of places related to the life of Buddha or Shakya Muni. Why Shakya Muni? Because he was a sage who was born in a Shakya Kul. Okay, that is why Shakya Muni. So when he is visiting those places, there also he is leaving some inscriptions. The very famous inscription in this context is which one? Rumindai pillar inscription. Have you heard of it? What does it tell us about? Yes, he is saying that I am exempting the people here from paying certain taxes. Why? Because I have visited the birthplace of Shakya Muni Buddha, and due to that I am reducing the amount of taxes to be paid by people in this land. Okay, so reduction of tax is also happening because people belonged to a holy area. According to Ashok, for Ashok, Buddhism was important. So when he is visiting the birthplace of Shakya Muni Buddha, he is exempting the people from paying certain taxes, and that is recorded in Rumindai pillar inscription. So in that context, Rumindai pillar inscription becomes important for us. Now on Rumindai pillar inscriptions, ideas of Dhammas are not being inscribed. What is being inscribed there? That he has visited the birthplace of Shakya Muni Buddha and he has exempted those people from paying certain taxes. Okay, so these are also relevant information that we get from Ashokan inscriptions. Okay, so he is also going on various yatras. This is the term that he uses. He is going on various yatras. He is traveling to places which are important for Buddhism. And by doing this also he is making efforts for making Buddhism relevant and important. Is this clear? Apart from this, he also addresses people of Sangha. So Sangha, that means a particular group where monks and nuns belong. Theris and Theras, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. So he is addressing the people of Sangha and he is telling them that you should follow the rules which you have to follow. So when we study Buddhism, we talk about rules which Theris and Theras had to follow. They are compiled in Vinaya Pitak. So there might be certain issue with that, because we know that gradually what happened, that nuns and monks became laxed. They stopped following certain rules. So here he is addressing them and he is asking them to follow those rules in a rigid way. Okay, which one is the inscription? Minor pillar inscription of Sanchi. So in the minor pillar inscription of Sanchi, he is also addressing the people of Sangha. Again, another unique inscription that we should know about. Is this clear? Now, what else did he do? Do any one of you remember? He is patronizing the third Buddhist council. We talked about Ajatashatru, Kalashok, and here Ashok patronizing the third Buddhist council. Fourth we will talk when we will talk about Kanishka. Okay, so here he is patronizing the third Buddhist council. What else is he doing? He is sending some people to Sri Lanka, and in those emissaries who were sent, his own son Mahendra and daughter Sanghamitra were also present. Okay, so he is sending people to different lands to spread the ideas of Buddhism. He sent his own son and daughter as well. Okay, now here another important thing we need to notice when we are talking about texts prescribing women to limit themselves to the boundaries of household, that is a prescription that has been issued, that you should behave this way. It is a norm. It does not mean that everyone will be following that norm only. There are always going to be exceptions. Okay, and Sanghamitra is also one such exception. In Buddhism, women did had more liberal place. Nonetheless, it was very unique to see a particular woman going from Pataliputra to Sri Lanka to spread Buddhism, and they converted the ruler Tissa there to Buddhism. Okay, now what is happening? Think about it. If people from Pataliputra are going, they are going to go to Deccan also. This will be the route, Deccan, South, and then Sri Lanka. That means when they are passing by these areas, they are going to spread the ideas of Buddhism in this land as well. So Buddhism will gradually spread to Deccan also, to South as well, and to Sri Lanka as well. So there are different rulers who have made efforts to spread Buddhism to different lands in the world. So it will not limit itself to India. The birthplace is India, but it is gradually spreading to various other regions as well. And in that context, the name of Ashok becomes very relevant. Is this much clear? So remember this much when we are discussing Ashok. I hope these things are clear. Yes. Who has done? James Princip. James Princip is the person who is deciphering Brahmi and Kharoshthi. No, James Princip is the person who has been ascribed with it. See, there are various people who make the effort. Okay. But there is one person who gets the clue and the person also gets the credit. So, Yes, he is somebody who is belonging to British East India Company also. See, when British are coming, people who are belonging to British East India Company, they were very much enthusiastic about understanding Indian past as well. So you will find a lot of people who are working for the company. At the same time, they are giving their time to archaeological sources also, to artifacts as well, in understanding Indian literary culture as well. Okay, so there are multiple names in that context. Yes. No, not Archaeological Survey. Archaeological Survey of India was not established back then. Okay, Asiatic Society में ये लोग काम करें, that will be established in 18th century. When we are talking about Archaeological Survey of India, it will be established later. Cunningham is the name that will be associated with that, and he is known as the father of Indian archaeology. Is this clear? So, yes. Okay, चले आगे आते हैं. James Prinsep, if you don't know the name, you should remember this name, that James Prinsep is somebody who deciphered the script. In 1826 or 9, I don't remember the year exactly, 1820s is the decade. Okay, chalo. आगे बढ़े? Is this clear? Now, we have discussed the important rulers here, that is of relevance when we are talking about Mauryan period. The most relevant name here will be of Ashok. There are going to be other rulers as well, but they are not going to remain relevant. So we don't need to mug up their names from our examination perspective. Okay, in some of the state examination, they do ask a lot of political details. UPSC doesn't ask that, so we don't need to mug up those things. Now, let us discuss about some of the important economic, social and cultural aspect. Okay, from examination perspective, again, you don't need to mug up each and everything here as well. The relevant information comes from literary as well as epigraphic sources here. Okay, so what is going to be important literary source? That is Arthashastra. When we are talking about inscriptions, there are some inscriptions which I will tell you about. Okay, so you need to remember those inscriptions and why they are important. Majorly, Arthashastra will remain relevant to understand the economy of this period. What does Arthashastra tell us about? Arthashastra advises the ruler that they should clear forest lands and they should expand the area of agriculture. Why am I emphasizing upon this? Because UPSC has already asked Arthashastra's perspective on slavery. If they ask a question, let's say on Arthashastra's perspective on agriculture, even if you know the details of Mauryan economy, but you don't know that we know this information from Arthashastra, you will not be able to answer that question. Okay, that is why source becomes important. So when we are talking about Arthashastra, it advises the ruler to clear the forest, to expand the area of agricultural land. That we have already studied when we study Mauryan economy. How do we know it about? From Arthashastra. What does Arthashastra say? That the state should keep some land for itself. What is the term that Arthashastra use? That is Sita land or Sita Bhumi. That this land should belong to the state. What do we mean by that? That produce from this land should directly go to the royal treasury. Okay. The other land should be given to people. There they are going to practice agriculture and state will have the right to tax them. Okay. This idea is going to be present in medieval India as well. There the terminology will change. From Sita land, we are going to use the term Halisa, the land which belongs to the state. So idea, concepts are similar. Okay, you just need to change the name. So who is going to work on the Sita land? There are two terms which have been used, Das and Karamkar. These two terms have been used in Arthashastra. So people who were doing labor on Sita land, for them these two terms have been used. Okay, so we find these terms also. What else do we find here? So we know that there is a particular land which should belong to state, and state should employ some labor so that they can work on those fields. The part of land which is cultivated by the peasant, from that land the state has the right to collect taxes. What kind of tax? Bali is the name, Bhag is the name. These are the names that have been mentioned. Okay, you should just know what do we mean by Bali, tax, Bhag, tax. Okay, that is what we need to know from examination perspective. Now this is something that we understood about land. Crops are going to remain similar, what we have already studied. When it comes to the technique, what does Arthashastra tell us about irrigation? So Arthashastra says that state should provide irrigation facility to people only in case they are paying taxes for irrigation as well. So Arthashastra encourages the state to ask people to arrange irrigation things for themselves. Okay. However, from inscriptions, we do know that state was also making some effort to provide irrigation facility to people. Which inscription tells us about that? Junagadh inscription of, it is not a Mauryan inscription, it is an inscription from post-Mauryan period. Junagadh inscription of Rudra Daman. What does it tell us about? It tells us that there is this Sudarshan lake which was built by one of the Mauryan officials, and I am renovating it. So in that context, we know an information that Mauryan administrative people also made lakes to provide irrigation facility to people. So that is one very important inscription. This inscription is important for other reasons also. When we will come to post-Mauryan period, then we will talk about the importance of this particular inscription. Okay. Was the state collecting taxes in case of natural calamities? No. Arthashastra also advises against it. Arthashastra also says that state should not collect taxes when there is a natural calamity. We also have inscriptional evidences for that. The Shahgora inscription is debated because there is no mention of Ashok there. What is the basis of relating it with Ashok? The script and language. We know that in Shahgora inscription also there is this mention that there was a natural calamity due to which production was severely hit, and state is providing relief measure to the peasants. Okay. In Mahasthan there is one inscription. Mahasthan in Bangladesh, there is one inscription where we know that Ashok provided relief measures to people when there was a situation of natural calamity. Okay, so these inscriptions are also important from our examination perspective because UPSC keeps asking about Ashokan inscriptions. So wherever we find the mention of Ashok, we should remember that. Is that clear? So Mahasthan inscription giving us an information about relief being provided by state in the case of a natural calamity. Is this clear? So this is about agriculture. Now when we come to pastoralism, Arthashastra says that state should also establish its own dairy and make profit. See, Arthashastra is obsessed with two things. One, how to make more and more money for state. Second, how to ensure king's safety. So it keeps giving a lot of examples, and it keeps saying that king should not allow even the wife to come closer if his hair is in a bun. क्यों? कि बाल में कुछ ऐसे हथियार छिपा लेगी, तो बाल खुला होना चाहिए. Okay, so maybe his anxiety is stemming from the fact that a lot of rulers were killed previously or they were poisoned. So it keeps giving information कि ये वाला खाना जो है, इस खाने में poison होगा अगर ये animal ऐसा behave करने लग गया. If the color of the leaf is changing, that means the food has been poisoned. So it is obsessed with ensuring the safety of king, and also obsessed with the ways in which it can make the state more profitable economically. Okay, so in pastoralism, it says that state should establish its own dairy farms, but we don't know to which extent it was being practiced because we don't have other sources backing it up. Is this clear? So we just need to remember Arthashastra's perspective on that. Now when we are talking about craft production, what is happening here? So craft production, it is going to flourish here as well. Okay, in this context, remember one particular pottery, NBPW pottery, Northern Black Polished ware, that is going to be prominent type of pottery. It does not mean that other kind of potteries will cease to exist. They'll also exist, but this is going to be the prominent one. Other things which we have studied already, sculpture making, weaving, house making, boat making, all these things are going to be prominent here as well. Here we find two terms that you should remember from examination perspective. One is Shreni and second is Puga. What do we mean by Shreni and Puga? Group of merchants or craftspeople. Craftspeople, there is a difference. Who is a craft person? Who produces a particular craft. Now that person can be a trader also. But there is a possibility that producer is somebody else and seller is somebody else. Is this clear? So remember these kind of small basic differences. When we are talking about Shreni or Pug, the English term that has been used is guild. Guild is a group of crafts people. So let's say people, so why people are making guilds? To protect their rights, to protect themselves from the customers. Think about it, people are going to a market, and if these crafts people are selling their goods to merchant or to individual customers, and the customer or the merchant is insistent upon a particular price, they might have to sell it on that price itself. If there are 4 people selling the same sari, let's say, I am asking them the price and they are telling me 7,000 and I am telling them no, I will give only 4,000. So 7,000 to 4,000. If a person is needy at that time, they will sell it even if they are at loss. Okay, so to protect themselves so that they can decide on the prices, they can negotiate with the state together, they are making shrenis, they are making pugas. Okay, and with this also, various jatis will emerge in coming time, jati or caste. So varna and jati, they are different, like sunar, like lohar. So how these castes are coming into existence? Because they are making a guild. So on the basis of occupation, not only birth but occupation. Okay, so that is also one way in which jatis or castes have been formed. One way, not the only way, one way. Okay, so they are making guilds which are also going to have long-term social implications. Is this clear? So remember this from here. When we are talking about trade, so trade is going to flourish at this point of time. With whom are they going to trade prominently? They will trade with Central Asia, but they will also trade with China. They will also send some goods to Sri Lanka, but very few when they will be going there. Generally, when we are talking about trade relations with Central Asia. In the context of Buddhism, this kind of trading network has developed. A very interesting work is being done at this now. How, when we are talking about spread of Buddhism, it is also establishing trade links with various areas. So in that context, our trade relations with Tibet is also being explored now. Okay, prominently the area that we need to remember is Central Asia. Okay, that is one thing that you need to Remember. You can trade with them. Why not? But mention is prominently of Central Asia. Okay. Why mention is prominently of Central Asia? Because of horses. We were getting horses from there. In India, good quality breed of horse is not present. You might ask a question, if primary war animal is elephant, why horses? For information. If you have to travel from Mysore to Takshashila or from Mysore to Pataliputra, how are you going to travel if you have to give some relevant information to the ruler? हाथी पे तो नहीं जाएंगे ना, horses से ही जाएंगे. Okay, so when we are talking about sending information from one place to the other, horses have remained relevant. Whether they are relevant for army or not, that is a different case. In post-Mauryan times, we will see that horses will become important war animal as well. Here, elephant is the important war animal. Still, people will buy good quality horses. Okay, is this clear? So that is one thing. What are we going to sell? क्या export करेंगे? We can do spices, we can do textile, saffron. So if you look at the items of export and import, historically they have remained more or less the same. In India, spices are going to be of good quality. Textile is going to be very much in demand. Saffron is going to be of very good quality. Okay, so that will form the items of export. When we will talk about the items of import, the primary thing that we are going to import will be horses. Okay, so that is something that is going to remain common throughout our historical development. Is this clear? Balance of trade in favor of India, historically till 1750. So that is one information that you have to understand once. It can be repeated throughout our historical development. Is this clear? So this is some of the important aspects related to economy that you should remember. The perspective of Arthashastra and important relevant information from inscriptions. That is something that you have to remember. Is this clear? Now let us move to society. What do we know about society? So in society, we will talk about Varna system. Varna system is going to be present, that we have already seen in later Vedic period. Okay, so Varna system is going to be a part of society. How many Varnas are there? 4. It is still present in India, whether we believe in it or not. Huh? The ruler is following Buddhism. Who said that people are also following the same religion? People might be following different religions at that point of time. ऐसा नहीं होगा ना कि राजा बदल गया तो राजा बदलने से सब अपना धर्म बदल लेंगे. राजा फॉलो कर रहा है बुद्धिज्म, उसको पसंद है बुद्धिज्म. उसी के घर में उसका पिता फॉलो कर रहा था आजीविका, उसका पिता फॉलो कर रहा था जैनिज्म. Okay, so when we think about religious history, this is a bias probably that we think it with rigidity. It has not been the case historically. In the same family, you can find people practicing different religions. There has been a particular dynasty called Ikshvaku. You don't study about them in UPSC because that is a very detailed area. When we are talking about the history of Deccan, तो वो generally syllabus में है नहीं हमारे. But if you look at them, the husbands are following different religion, the wives are following different religions. So it is not that rigid when we are talking about ancient India. People had a lot of flexibility, people had a lot of mobility in that context. Okay, so this is one thing that we should keep in mind. Okay, here Varna system will be present in society. Castes are going to be present as well. So Varna system is there, various jatis, castes will also be formed gradually, and there will be various reasons for that. You must have already studied it. That is not important here from prelims perspective, but you know about that ki intervarna marriages ho rahi hain, or due to occupation various castes are being formed, or by inclusion of people of different identity various castes are being formed. These three ways have been given through which castes are being formed. Is this clear? When Megasthenes is coming here, he is making a mistake in understanding the system of Varna and caste. Okay, so probably he is mistaking people's occupational identity with their Varna identity. So this is a mistake that he is making. What might be the possible reason for that? That he is somebody who is not belonging to this land, one thing, who might not be familiar with the language spoken by people, second thing. Third thing, he is coming from a very different socio-economic place, and here he is coming as an ambassador. He is not coming as a common person. So the ambassador is going to go to the royal palace. The interaction will also be limited. So due to the limited interaction, possibly he was not able to explore the nitty-gritties of the society. Is this clear? So this is something that we need to keep in mind. That is one aspect of the society. Now the second thing that we see, not only in India but in general in the world, is the institution of slavery. What is the meaning of slavery? Who is a slave? When we talk about slaves, what we need to keep in mind? Historically, see, they are the people who don't have rights over their own body, one thing. Second, their progenies, their sons and daughters are also going to be slaves. Okay, so it is something which is generational. That is another thing that we need to keep in mind. And not only in India but in various parts of the world, the institution of slavery has existed, and in most of the places it has been abolished in 19th century legally. Still people were practicing it, but it was abolished legally. Okay, so now coming here, when we talk about the case of Mauryan Empire or India in general, in India the institution of slavery was mostly domestic slavery. What do we mean by domestic slavery? घर के कामकाज करने के लिए slaves were being used. Okay, during this very time we talk about Greco-Roman civilization as well. Greco-Roman civilization was based on slave mode of production. So when we study economy, we study about mode of productions as well. So slave mode of production, feudal mode of production, capital mode of production. We study about these mode of productions. When we are talking about Greco-Roman world, it was based on the slave mode of production. That means slaves were involved in production process, be it agriculture, be it craft production. Slaves will be employed in that. When we are talking about Megasthenes, he is coming from that cultural zone. When he probably saw people in India roaming around freely in the fields, he might had this misconception that slavery does not exist in India. Why? Because he has certain perceptions. He is coming from a particular land where mode of production itself is a slave mode of production. So this thing also he has gotten wrong about India. He is saying that in Mauryan Empire slavery does not exist, which is wrong. Slavery did exist in Mauryan Empire, and that is domestic slavery. Okay, and a lot of other sources tells us about that. For example, Ashokan inscriptions. When he is talking about his idea of Dhamma, he is mentioning this also. This was a point which was missed. You should remember this also. He says that one should be kind to their slaves, particularly in 13th rock edict. So when he is saying one should be kind to their slaves, of course he himself is saying that slavery is present and people are not kind to their slaves. That is why he is saying that one should be kind to their slaves. Okay, so that is one reference that we get. Second reference that we get is coming from Arthashastra. Arthashastra talks about the institution of slavery in a lot of detail. What does it say? It says, see, it is a text which is talking about who could be a slave. Can somebody who is a born slave, only that person can be a slave, or can someone be converted to a slave? Okay, so when we are talking about someone becoming a slave, people can become slave, people can be slaves because their parents are slave. Second, they can become slave when they are prisoners of war, because when people are captured in a war, they are converted into slaves. That is a second method. When it comes to this particular question, whether an Arya can become a slave or not, Arthashastra is strictly against it. Arthashastra says that a person can become a slave due to judicial punishment, but that punishment also has an end date. So then again that person will become an Arya. Okay, a person can become a slave if they are in debt and they are not able to pay the debt. So they are working as a slave, they are paying that debt, and again they'll convert it to the status of an Arya. Arthashastra says that if a person is selling an Arya child as a slave, that person will be punished. Not only that person, but also the one who is witnessing this act happening, that person will also be punished. So this is the kind of attitude that Arthashastra have towards slavery. Okay. Second thing, when it comes to women, Arthashastra is a text which is a bit progressive in this context. When we are looking at a text like Arthashastra, it talks about the rights of a female slave. Think about it. We are talking about a society where women in general did not have a lot of rights. And here we are talking about a slave woman. And Arthashastra says that if a master is making sexual relations with a slave woman and she is bearing a male child, not only her but also the whole family, all of them should be manumitted. That means freed from slavery. And the son who is born will also have legal rights. What do we mean by legal rights? Inheritance rights. Okay. Arthashastra says a son. Arthashastra, even after being a progressive text, is a text of its own times. Okay. So when it comes to patriarchal norms, it does not question it because it is a text of its own times. These ideas are very modern ideas. Here today we are talking about these kind of ideas. It does not mean that we have to look for each and every progressive idea in the past as well. They had a very different lifestyle, they had a very different time period, and their different kind of ideas existed, whether problematic or good. That we can judge from today's perspective. From that particular time, Arthashastra was a progressive text. क्योंकि जिन लोगों के बीच में situated है वहाँ तो बहुत radical बात कर रहा है. ठीक है? So that is one thing we need to keep in mind. Okay. When we are talking about the son getting the legal right, is the son getting equal rights as the other Arya sons? No. The son is getting the legal right to inherit the property. It does not say that the son is going to have equal share in property. Okay. When we are talking about inheritance laws, उसमें भी ये होता था कौन से नंबर पे पैदा हुए हैं, तो उसके हिसाब से property rights मिलते थे. ठीक है. When we are talking about the varna or caste identity of the mother, that also mattered. So the son being born from a woman of upper varna will have more rights in comparison to the son of a lower varna mother. So these kind of problems were there when we are talking about inheritance rights also. It was not about getting equal rights, but this idea of getting a legal right in itself seems to be very progressive considering that time period. Is this clear? So I hope this much is clear. By looking at the body language, I feel it's already time. Okay, so we can stop it here, and in the next class, we are going to take it forward. Is there any doubt from today's class? Everything is clear? Chalo, great. So what we are going to do tomorrow, we are going to complete Mauryan period. Yes, just let me finish this. We are going to complete the Mauryan period. We are going to solve PYQs which have been asked from these two topics, and then we will start with post-Mauryan period, okay? We'll stop the class here. Have a good day. Yes. अभी सन का पॉइंट बताया, उसके पहले जुडिशियल पनिशमेंट का बताया था. ओके. जुडिशियल पनिशमेंट में क्या होता है कि अर्थशास्त्री ये कह रहा है कि जुडिशियल पनिशमेंट अगर किसी को मिल रहा है तो उसमें उसको ये बोला जा सकता है कि भाई तुम आर्य हो तो तुमको स्लेव की तरह से काम करना पड़ेगा, बट द टाइम पीरियड विल बी लिमिटेड. लाइफ टाइम के लिए स्लेव नहीं बनेंगे. ठीक है, दैट इज व्हाट आई वांटेड टू से देयर. ओके, चलो, सी यू टुमारो.